Joe, why did you have to have so many hair transplants?
That is a very good question. In fact, it's one of the more frequent questions that I get. So we're going to talk about why I've had so many hair transplants. Right, so before we get into that, if you don't know who I am or what this channel is that you stumbled across, my name is Joe Tillman, and this is the Hair Transplant Mentor YouTube channel. If you don't know what a hair transplant mentor is, when this video is done, go to hairtransplantmentor.com to learn all about it. So yeah, I've had a lot of hair transplants. I've actually had 9 hair transplants. 2 with one surgeon that he's passed away. I don't like talking about him because he's dead and he's gone and it doesn't matter anyway. And then 7 hair transplants with Dr. Jerry Wong, this guy at Hassan and Wong. And I think that this is, a good time to talk about why I've had all these surgeries and how those procedures and that experience aids me in being able to tell you the truth about this industry and about the procedure. So first, the backstory. My first 2 hair transplants with the first doctor, I was 22 years old, and he performed 2 procedures that were called mini micrografting, which is the earliest version of strip surgery. You can't even call it FUT because technically it's not FUT, because FUT is not technically just strip, it's a type of strip anyway. But it was mini micrografting, which means that no microscopes were used, and the grafts that were stuck into the frontal area of my scalp were very thick. There was a lot of hair in each graft, not just 2 or 3 hairs, but sometimes 6 to 10 hairs. And it was ugly. It looked horrible. I didn't realize how horrible it looked until I continued to lose more hair because the grafts were placed behind my hairline at the time. And the idea was I'll recede into it and I'll never be bald. Well, guess what? Not only did I recede into it, I actually got a lot more bald than I had ever imagined, and that's what led me to where I am now. So 22 years old, 2 surgeries. I had 2 wide donor scars, by the way, in the occipital region of my scalp. They were stacked like this. These are referred to as stacked occipital scars. And then by the time I was 31, I was like this. I was beyond a Norwood 6, but I still had those ugly grafts up top. So the first procedure I had with Dr. Wong, it was strip surgery. And at the time, the largest surgeries that were being performed were in the 1,500 to 1,800 graft range using strip. And at this point, it wasn't mini micrografting strip, it was FUT strip. The first surgery got not just both scars taken out, Dr. Wong consolidated both occipital donor scars, but also got me 2,406 grafts. Not a lot of hair today, but back then it was mind-blowing to get all that hair and all that scar tissue in one shot. So what did he do? He basically built a new hairline in front of the old hairline that was more natural. The grafts were laying at an angle that was more natural. The direction was more natural. And the amount of work that he did in between those old grafts helped to camouflage those grafts and give me coverage on top so that after 9 months, this is the result that I had. Now, is it full coverage? Obviously not. Is it super youthful looking? Obviously not. But it achieved the one goal I was desperate for in my life, and that was naturalness. I no longer looked like someone that had had a hair transplant. I just looked like someone that went bald in the back, got kind of thin up front, but still I looked natural, and that was a wonderful, wonderful feeling. And eventually, when I came back 9 months later for a follow-up with Dr. Wong, we talked about doing another procedure simply because I realized it could be done and more great things could happen. And Dr. Wong wanted to do the procedure for me because of all the exposure I'd given him in the clinic at the time. Like, they had seen nothing like, no one had done anything like this before anywhere. And so through his gratitude, he gave me this procedure at no charge, and it was fantastic. The second procedure was 2,425 grafts, a little bit more than the first one, and part of that is because Dr. Wong only had one scar to deal with instead of two, like he had in the first procedure. So that was a great thing. And what we did in this procedure is we not only dealt with the crown for added coverage, but we also lowered the hairline. And this is also where Dr. Wong introduced me to the concept of temple point reconstruction. And you have to understand that back in 2002, 2003, temple points were not reconstructed. Almost no one was doing temple point reconstruction, but Dr. Wong was, because he understood that the angle and direction could be mimicked with the tools that he was using at the time. Excuse me. And this allowed him to completely recreate those temple points on the left, or the right and the left of my scalp. Now, why are temple points important? Well, they're actually more important than the temples. It all ties in together, but it balances out your profile. So these temple points, if these weren't here, if they were further back, then my hairline would have to be a bit higher because of the balancing effect. And Dr. Wong was able to pull it off. It made a huge difference. And after these two procedures with Dr. Wong, I had 4,831 grafts, and I had full coverage. And the crown was nicely covered. It wasn't thick, but it was nicely covered. I had temple points again, and my hairline was slightly lowered. And of course, overall, it was a bit fuller. So great, great outcome. I could have easily stopped at this point, but I didn't. And I actually started working at the clinic right after the procedure. Yeah, after the procedure, I started working at the clinic. And fast forward another year, and there was another opportunity for a procedure. Dr. Wong came in, said we had a patient that couldn't make it for the procedure. Everyone's here. Let's get you ready for the next hair conference. So I was back in the chair again. Third pass, 2,488 grafts, and this time we went for icing on the cake. We lowered the hairline a bit more, added density in the crown as well, and added a few grafts here and there to just kind of really fine tune everything. And I got to tell you that while it wasn't needed, like I was really happy with my result after number 2. The result from number 3 with the added fullness and the refinement knocked it out of the park. Roughly a year later, the results were beyond anything I could have imagined, and it allowed me for the first time to have more freedom with my hair, and not just the hair length that I could grow it and for it to look good, but the hair styles. And I was also able to, where I felt comfortable enough at the time, to start playing around with hair color. Like my stylist at the time was suggesting I do blonde highlights, and so I did, and kept growing my hair longer to where I had this mop of hair. And at this point, I had 7,319 grafts in 3 procedures with Dr. Wong. Now remember, 3 procedures with Dr. Wong is responsible for 98% of all the hair on my head at the time. So that is a perspective that you need to be aware of. So where did these other procedures come from? That's 3 procedures with Dr. Wong. There is, so 5 in total, so there's 4 more to count. What were they? Well, the procedure I did after that was a small body hair test case. It was like less than 100 grafts taken from my chest and put into a small area on my crown. They're growing fine, thank you very much. They're still there. But that was a surgery. That does count as a surgery. So that was number 4. After that, I had a small FUE with Dr. Hassan. It was like 3 or 30 grafts. So that technically is a surgery. It made no impact whatsoever cosmetically. It wasn't supposed to. But that technically was a surgery. After that was another surgery that was necessary because the donor scar in the back of my scalp had stretched. It wasn't massive, but it was big enough to where I was having trouble cutting my hair to a shorter length that I was transitioning into. And so Dr. Wong did a scar revision where he cut out that portion of scar tissue just in the back, just in the occipital scalp, not on the sides. And he was still able to join that with the two sides of the scalp, the scar tissue, to where I still only had one continuous scar. But that was still a surgery. So then after that, we had, let's see, there was the body hair, there was the FUE Dr. Hassan, there was the revision, which brings us to the last surgery, which was 1,399 grafts that Dr. Wong performed for a very specific reason that I had requested. My hairstyle was transitioning into a much shorter style, like very much like I have now. I was getting older and I was kind of tired of having longer hair and all the things that come along with it. What Dr. Wong did is he took out a strip from both sides, 2 strips, still along that same incision line from before, so I still only have one scar. He left the back alone, and he got 1,399 grafts out of those 2 smaller strips. And what he did with those grafts is he took the bottom half of my crown. If you look at the crown from before, draw a horizontal line through the middle. There's the miniaturized hair on the bottom, and then the bald scalp on the top half. So the 2 procedures I had where Dr. Wong placed grafts and rebuilt the whorl pattern in the top half of the crown, all that hair, it's terminal hair. It's thick, it's healthy, and it stands out compared to the miniaturized hairs on the bottom half. There was a lot of hair here, it's just very thin and fine. So I knew that with a shorter haircut, the back would be imbalanced because the bottom half doesn't match with the top half. So I wanted that to be addressed. I also wanted the part line to be thickened just a little bit. And so that's what Dr. Wong did. He put 900 grafts in the bottom half so that the bottom half matches the top half. He put, 100 grafts along the incision here, or the part line here, but then the remaining 400 grafts, about half and half, went back into these temple points. So that's the breakdown. 9 surgeries, 7 with Dr. Wong, for a grand total of 8,718, not counting the little guinea pig sessions and the scar revision session I had. So I basically got 9,000 grafts, all procedures combined from Dr. Wong. When you look at the overall distribution of where my hair has been placed from all these procedures, it might make more sense to you now why I don't have a hairline down to here and I don't have a crown that's, bulging with density. The math just doesn't work out like that, especially in a case like mine. There are plenty of cases of aggressive hair loss that have gone through hair transplant surgery that have a better, in the eyes of many of you, a better aesthetic for the hairline placement, or thicker overall density and coverage, and that's fine. This isn't a contest. But in my position, with my characteristics, this is about as good as it can get because I have fine hair and I was a repair patient with a deficit of donor tissue to begin with. So I hope that you can appreciate that. I hope you understand this issue, which is referred to as supply and demand in the industry. It's something that's not really talked about much anymore. It used to be years ago, but it's extremely important because it refers to the supply of donor hair and the never-ending quest to meet the demand of hair loss on the front and the top, and it rarely ever works out to being an even ratio. So the question remains, with all these strip surgeries I've had, do I have any more donor hair? Well, I talked to Dr. Wong about this, and as far as the laxity for a strip goes, he says I'm pretty much done. It's a little bit too tight. But Dr. Wong, as well as basically every doctor that I work with and doctors I don't work with, have said that for FUE, I've got maybe realistically between 1,000 and 1,500 grafts available throughout my entire donor area if I wanted to have more work. So, am I done? Is 9 the end of the road, or do I want to go to the magical number 10? Do I want to hit number 10 as far as my hair transplant journey goes? Well, I guess I'm going through with number 10.
Is it?
This is number 10.
Oh my gosh.